I think Raquel has a connection to Custer County, if I remember correctly. If she wants to share a little bit. Nick and Trenton, welcome. Thanks for joining us today. I know we've got a few more that are planning to join us, so we'll hang out here just a little bit longer. So if you're wondering what we're talking about, check out the chat box. We're wondering what your connection to Ansley might be, if you have a connection or if you visited the community. While we're waiting for a few more people to join, I'd like to just update you on a couple upcoming events, some important dates and information that you might want to be aware of, especially if you are in the housing network. August 26th, NYFA is sponsoring their next Networking with NYFA, and they have a speaker from NeighborWorks of Nebraska. And I apologize, I did not check to see who that speaker might be. If you might know who that is, feel free to let us know through the chat box as you are listening today. September 30th, the Department of Economic Development has their owner-occupied rehab formal application deadline. And if you are interested in that, there was a pre-application deadline in July. But for more information on that process, feel free to check out their website. And then in October, the Nebraska Investment Finance Authority's latest housing study grant application deadline is on the calendar. That's very helpful for communities who haven't done a housing study but maybe want to. There is a match requirement, but you are eligible to apply for up to $60,000 for that fund if you are interested. So check out the links there shown on your slide. So I just want to give a shout out to both NYFA and DED. We appreciate their support here at SCED and the work that they do daily across Nebraska to promote housing opportunities. So thank you to them and for all of the effort that they give on a daily basis. So I think we will go ahead. I want to honor everybody's time and we will get started here. I know people will continue to join us and that's okay. Things are always pressing on our time. So let me just formally welcome you to today's HomeNE Learning Network webinar. I'm Lori Ferguson with South Central Economic Development District, and I am your host for today's conversation. So we always like to keep you updated on HomeNE growth. And because of our regular participants and newcomers, HomeNE continues to grow and expand across the state. We always enjoy bringing you informative topics, and it's our hope that you are beginning to apply and perhaps see some growth of your own in your community as you think about, share, and put into practices some of the ideas from HomeNE. We think today's topic is especially an actionable item that any community can replicate across the state. So with growth in mind, I want to just give a shout out to our newest community who's joining us today. Welcome to the community of Gibbon, Nebraska. They are a first-time participant in our HomeNE series. So today we have the pleasure of hearing from Brian Beaumont and Dave Larson, who are members of the Ansley Investment Group. This is a newly formed group, and they're already doing some great things in the community of Ansley. So when I heard about them, I knew I wanted to have them on a future webinar, and they were kind enough and gracious enough to say yes. And they both wear many hats in the community, and they'll be sharing more with us here shortly. So before I turn it over to Sharon to introduce Brian and Dave, I just want to direct your attention to the chat box at the bottom of your screen. We encourage you throughout the webinar today to utilize that and give us an opportunity to hear from you. Leave your comments, ask your questions, but use it as a way to communicate with us, with each other, and with our speakers. We'll be monitoring it as you respond, and we will share your comments and questions with Brian and Dave as we can. So just a couple months ago, we started the next slide. We started asking you some initial questions about the topic of the day. So we're going to put into practice that chat box function for you. I've been so impressed with the questions that you've been sharing in past webinars. So we want to know once again from you today, What is it that interests you about today's topic? When you saw that we were having an investment group from a community in Custer County, what was it that interested you enough to register for today? And what do you hope to know more about at the end of today's webinar? So if you can put into your chat box your answers to those questions, we'll be checking those out here throughout the time together. So HomeNE is a learning network, and we learn best when we interact and engage with each other. So we welcome and encourage you to please share your thoughts. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Sharon Heffley, who is the Executive Director here at South Central Economic Development District.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It's great to have you all here with us. It's our August edition, and I heard the talk about the weather early on before everybody was on, and I have to say, this summer has gone really fast and it's been beautiful. Usually August is a season all its own of hot and dry and starting to get kind of ugly out. But man, for all the other craziness, I think we've been really blessed this year. So welcome to the August edition of the HomeNE 2020 webinar series. South Central Economic Development District, or SCED, serves as the lead agent for the webinars and also semi-annual gatherings, which this year will be annual instead. We had to skip that one. What is HomeNE? It's a learning network, like Lori said. We established it at the end of 2017, so we're coming up on the end of our third year. It was designed with people from across Nebraska in mind, people that want to successfully tackle their local housing challenges. The purpose of HomeNE is to build a network of individuals and communities with shared interest in assessing and addressing housing issues, to provide a safe space to be vulnerable about what's been tried, find motivation to take one more step in the right direction, to learn from the successes and struggles of others, to take away new ideas or see things through a new lens, and to inspire you, because what you are doing is valuable and nobody is going to do it quite like you. It's been an exciting week because we've been getting calls from communities saying, man, we want to get something done this year, and where do we start? And that's exactly what this is about. So today we'll be hearing from Brian Beaumont and Dave Larson of Ansley. And rather than reading bios to you, I am going to let them introduce themselves as they talk about what's happening in housing in Ansley and the Ansley Investment Group. So welcome, Brian and Dave, to our learning network.
Thank you, Sharon. Hi, I'm Brian Beaumont with Ansley Investment Group. A little bit about me and my background. I'm an Ansley native, born and raised here in Custer County. Actually went to grade school in a little two-room school in Westerville, about 8 miles north of here. Go Wildcats. Later on transferred to Ansley in junior high and became a graduate in '95. So I grew up in the construction industry. My father owned a construction company, and so I've been around the trades pretty much my whole life. Dad always said he had to do construction work to pay for his farming habit. So I've owned my own construction company and also been partners with my brother in the family construction company, family business, up until about 5 years ago, when my wife Heidi and I bought Ansley Lumber and Supply. It was a business that was for sale for about 2 to 3 years before we purchased it, and kind of one of those businesses, you know, we didn't really want to see go away or disappear like so many other businesses have in our community and other smaller communities like our town. So.
Dave Larson, been here since second grade. Worked for a few companies around here. Finally went out on my own about 5 years ago into the construction business. Run light and heavy equipment, building demolition and other things. Yeah.
Okay.
So just to talk a little bit about our community here in Ansley. Ansley is we're a small bedroom community of about 400 people. We're 16 miles east of Broken Bow and roughly about 45 minutes north of Kearney. Ansley's kind of strategically located, I think, because we have a convergence of three major highways right here. Highway 2, Highway 183, and 92. There's no shortage of work opportunities here in Custer County. A lot of our residents live here but work in Broken Bow, being it's so close. A lot of the major employers here are Becton Dickinson, Adams Land and Cattle, Thomas Livestock, Jeannie Melham Memorial Hospital, and not to mention all the grocery stores, restaurants, pharmacies, and other construction companies here in Custer County. Ansley has two main parks here. One is centrally located. Lori mentioned the one that's down by Ansley Lake. That park at the lake is actually in the process of getting refurbished. So my wife Heidi, she received 3 grants and also various donations from individuals and business owners here in Ansley. So we're in the process of getting new equipment, rubber mulch, fencing, and that kind of stuff. So we're excited. Hopefully late fall here, you'll see a brand new park at the Ansley Lake. Another thing that we have here in Ansley is a city pool. One thing that I think we overlook, or maybe as residents here we take for granted, is our city-wide operated generator. Ansley is never without power for very long. And I believe even for a couple of weeks or maybe even a month in the summer, Custer Public Power pays the city of Ansley to fire up the generator and run the town off it to help take the load off of the power grid in the summer due to irrigation. So it's actually a great asset that we have here in town, and it's something that we never really stress or talk about. So just to get started with some of the community-minded thinking and things that we've started doing or have done here in the past. When Heidi and I bought the lumberyard, we did a lot of switching around and changing suppliers and adding suppliers. And with that, one of them was our paint supplier. We switched paint companies. So we had a whole slew of leftover paint from the previous company that a lot of people said, why don't you donate that to like Habitat for Humanity, which is a great idea, but that doesn't really benefit our town or our community. So Heidi actually started a program called Paint Our Town. And she went to all of the downtown businesses here and talked to them about getting, we would donate the paint. They just had to pick out the color, and we even donated our labor to paint the facade of their building. So it was a great way to kind of spruce up the downtown area here in Ansley. And it was a great way for us to give back to the community with, leftover paint. So. Ansley Lumber and Supply is also a member of the CEDC, which is the Custer Economic Development Corporation. Heidi and I maintain a great open relationship with Andrew Ambries, the director there. And so we have a lot of open communications back and forth with him, and we've also tried to get things going, other possibilities and avenues going that way. And one of those avenues was in 2018, there was some leftover grant funds. It was called the Innovation Demonstration Program. And so we applied for those grant funds, it was actually for an old dilapidated, kind of a neglected vacant hotel in the downtown area here. And we were going to refurbish that into 3 apartments. So with that, we actually made it to Lincoln. They narrowed it down to a handful of applicants, and we were one of those handfuls. We made it to Lincoln and got to present before the board. And long story short, unfortunately, we were denied those funds, mostly because of the floodplain here in Ansley. The hotel sits in the floodplain, and therefore we lost out on the funds. It was a very lengthy process. It was an incredible opportunity, don't get me wrong, but it was a very devastating blow. It was kind of hard on me because I thought we kind of had it in the bag, and because of the floodplain thing, we got our funds denied. So we, several months later, we obviously didn't give up. We kept trying to pursue other avenues. Oddly enough, Heidi and Dave over here were behind the front counter at the lumberyard brainstorming one day, and they were thinking of ideas to get some housing going here in Ansley, and they concocted the idea of starting an investment club. With that, we kind of liked the idea because we wouldn't have to go through the process of applying for grants. There wouldn't be any red tape, no hoops to jump through, that kind of thing. It would be, a private, let's just get it done kind of a thing. So with that, we thought, well, if there's 3 of us thinking the same way, there's bound to be other people in our community that are thinking the same way as we are. So we started asking around, talking to people, just kind of getting some feelers out there to see if anybody would be interested in starting an investment club. And it was very positive feedback. We got a lot of interest in it right away. So with that, we started the Ansley Investment Group, LLC. It was established in January of 2020. Is when we had the papers drawn up for the LLC. Currently, there are 8 members in the LLC with 1 investment of $10,000. So basically how it works, so like Heidi and I, we put in 10,000, we get 1 vote. Dave and Melissa, his wife, put in 10,000, they get 1 vote. So whether you're an individual or a family, you still only ever get 1 vote. That way there wouldn't be any husband and wife saying yes, the other one saying no. You have to discuss it among yourselves and only vote one way. We decided as a group to, I guess, do single family housing or single family homes, because in Custer County as a whole, there is a shortage of housing. Like I said before earlier, we are a bedroom community. Unfortunately, we have no bedrooms. So we decided on to try to get a quick win and maybe do like a single family home and sell it. I thought of maybe doing a duplex right away, but the group thought that they voted against it. They thought that maybe trying to be a landlord wasn't really where we wanted to go as a group. So we started out with a single family home. It just made sense to go that way as a group as a whole. So the first project, which you see here in the picture, we purchased the land from local individual here in town. And it's right on Main Street. Great access to the school, the pool, the downtown area. It is a residential area, but because it's on Main Street, the lots are kind of small. They were actually 25-foot wide. So we purchased 8 of them. And this lot that you see here would be 4 of them that was kind of cleared out. We had a clean slate basically, where the other 4 had a house on it that we had to tear down. So we started on this lot to hurry up and get something going and get a house built and hopefully get it sold before the school year started. We started, obviously we started out with 80,000 because there's 8 investors, $10,000 a pop. And then we got a construction loan from Flatwater Bank here in town. Actually, the banker here in town is part of the investment club, so it was pretty easily handled. The property, the group's resources include, Dave here owns several pieces of equipment, so he was very instrumental in getting the site prepped, doing all the dirt work, and getting the pad ready to go. This house that you see here, we actually built, it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, a little over 1,500 square feet, oversized double-car garage. It's a slab on grade, but it does have a storm shelter built in. It's actually the master closet. Supposed to withstand a direct blow from an EF5 tornado. So that way, I guess we built it kind of with the line of thinking that, we build it as if we had to move into it. So, if I have to move into it, I don't want to run outside in the middle of the night if there's a tornado in my skivvies and jump in a hole or a storm shelter somewhere. I can just get out of bed and roll to the master closet. So that was kind of the line of thinking there with that. The reason being for the slab on grade was because we could target a greater audience with that. It's big enough, being a 3-bedroom, that we can do a young family. It's very easily ready to move into. It'd be a good starter home for a young family, but also being a slab on grade, the older generation, which was kind of our line of thinking, they can move into this, not have any steps anywhere. And maybe that would free up an older house that they're living in for a younger couple. So that was kind of the line of thinking with the slab on grade. Since then, here's the pictures of the main bath and the kitchen. Just recently, we have sold this house. So now we just have to get it done. We close on it in September 14th. And we're probably about, I'd say 2 to 3 weeks from getting it done. So we ought to be able to make the closing date. And then with that, I'm working on a set of plans for the next house, which would be right beside this one on the other 4 lots. This is the house that Dave demolished. We tore it down, hauled it off, and Dave cleaned up the site and pretty much has all the dirt work ready to go for the next new house here in Ansley. Of course, we had to do an asbestos test, and we had all the asbestos removed and had it certified. And then Dave was able to go in there with his excavator and basically just chew it up. And
We smashed the house and loaded it into trailers and then hauled it south of Broken Bow to what they call a CD site, which is a huge thing for the demolition of our properties in these towns.
yeah,
If we didn't have that, there'd be nowhere to go with it.
yeah, that's one thing that kind of run into with doing this, and maybe other smaller communities like this, there's really nowhere to go with some of these dilapidated houses. This house, the reason why we got it bought from the previous owner was because he was going to refurbish it and remodel it, but the foundation was bad. And that's kind of the story all over our little town here, that, you know, it had an old brick foundation and it was crumbling and literally falling over. So it was kind of past the point of trying to do anything with. So we thought, well, we'll just tear it down and make way for a new house. But being able to haul it somewhere is, you know, that was a huge expense. We had to haul it up 12 miles south of Brokenville.
Yeah.
So kind of a large expense for, you know, to get started, but it's just one of those things that one of the obstacles that we run up against every day here. So if there's anything that I could give to
Brian?
other communities that might be interested in doing this, you know, there's kind of some words of encouragement, or maybe, you know, some basic rules that, you know, I try to live my life by, and we kind of follow, you know, the same lines, Dave and I. You know, there's 6 basic rules, and I'm sure all successful people know about this, but, you know, the first one is trust in yourself. If you have good morals and solid principles, it shouldn't be too hard to trust in yourself. Number 2 is break the rules. I should say break the rules, not the law. That wouldn't be good. You don't want to break the law. But 3 is huge. You don't want to, don't be afraid to fail. You know, just so many people sit around and worry about, you know, well, what if we don't get it sold? What if we build this thing and we don't sell it? Don't worry about all that. Just get out there and do it. Just do it. 4 would be, don't listen to naysayers, or as I like to call them, negative Nancy's. When we were starting this, there was literally a lot of talk at the coffee shop. You know, who's doing this work? What's going on? What's being done? Finally, they found out that we started an investment group and that we're trying to build spec homes and we're going to sell them. I literally had a lady pick my hat up to see if I had stupid written on my forehead. It was a lady that I've known forever, but, you know, it's one of those things that you kind of just have to take and put it on a shelf, set it aside. Don't listen to the negative Nancy's. Just keep focused on the task at hand and keep pushing. Number 5 is work your butt off. If anybody thinks that this will be easy, it's not. I spent a lot of nights, a lot of weekends, and I'm talking Saturday, Sunday, weekends. And almost, I know Dave was ready to pull his hair out, much like I was. We kept focused and we kept going, and finally all of our hard work has paid off because now it's sold before we're even done with it. And 6, give back. You know, be humble enough that if you do find success when you do this, always remember to give back to your community or your favorite charity. I will say that so we started Ansley Investment Group in January, purchased the land in February, broke ground about March 15th, wasn't it, Dave?
Yep.
And so then in 6 months, we have it sold. So it can be done. And I guess we're an example of that. We just want something better for our community, and we want to leave something to our kids, because we feel like if we leave it to our kids to do something with, maybe there won't be anything left. So we felt kind of the pressure to step up and be the ones to do this. So.
Brian, I wanted to just ask you a couple questions, if you don't mind. Give you
Sure.
a chance to catch your breath, and thank you for what you've said. When we were talking previously, and I asked Sherry to return to this slide, you had some issues with setbacks, is that correct, on these lots? How did you resolve that?
Setbacks. Oh, you with
With 100-foot, I think you said?
yeah. So because it was on Main Street, so the lower part of Ansley on Main Street is all commercial, but then when you get closer to 183 or up the hill, it's all residential, but it's still Main Street. So with that, they have a 100-foot setback. So that basically set our first home clear back. It was almost in the backyard. I mean, we had a huge front yard. And so I was able to work with the city board and the city administrator to try to get something resolved so we could keep this house in line with the other houses on Main that have kind of been grandfathered in. And so they actually let loose of 15 feet in the front yard on the south side of Main Street where these new houses are going, so we can keep the houses all in line. So.
Okay, good. And we had a question. Are you able to share the purchase price?
Yep. So we sold it for $202,000.
Okay. So tell me what this purchase means to the community in terms of, you and I had talked about a little bit about the buyers, and while they aren't putting kids in the school system, what it means to the community. And one of the first things we can point to is the increased tax valuation and taxes going into the different entities that get a portion of the taxes. But what does it mean for the community?
Well, it's huge because, so when we started all this, kind of right before we broke ground, we did a market analysis or we had a market analysis done on it to see what we could sell this for. And the appraiser said, you know, I would sell it between 190 and 210,000, but you know, where you're in Ansley and nothing has really ever sold. We've had some houses built here, but if they don't sell, you don't have that comparable. So he said 210 is kind of high. So we set out and we sold it for 202. So we broke that $200,000 mark. It was huge for the group and for the community of Ansley. It is a retired couple that bought it. So yes, no kids in our school. I mean, that would have been ideal, but it's still a win for the group, win for the community. So now this first house was huge because now we have a comparable for the next one. So.
And tell us a little bit about the next one. It's next door to this one. Is it going to be similar style, similar size? Tell us more about it.
It'll be close to the same size. It might be a little bit bigger. It'll still be a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, probably between 15 and 1,600 square feet, another double car garage, but it's going to look different. That would be easier for us because we could just build cookie cutters. We already know what we got in it, but as a community, we don't really want a town full of cookie cutter homes, you know. So we are making this one look completely different.
Okay.
The next one will be a slab on grade because it is further down the hill. So unfortunately, the sewer is only about 5 feet in the ground. So where this house used to sit, we are now going to build a new home and it's going to be a slab on grade. That way we can still accommodate proper drainage for the sewer.
Okay.
We could do a basement, but if you do a basement, then you have to put in a grinder and a lift station for the sewer, and I don't like doing that. They always stink. So we'll just do another slab on grade with a storm shelter in the master bed, master closet.
So we've got a question for you here from Andy. He said he's heard from local contractors on how the price of materials has spiked because of the pandemic. Will that affect your timeline or sales price on the next home?
Yeah, it will. But in the grand scheme of things, you know, the lumber prices are kind of minute when you're building up, you know, a brand new home. It might sway the price maybe, you know, $1,000. So
Okay.
nothing huge.
Okay. So how are the negative Nancy's treating you now?
They're pretty quiet. So not a lot of talk at the coffee shop about being so stupid. So
Okay. Okay. So Megan wants to know if an investor wants to get out of the group, how does that work?
So we have it drawn up in the articles of incorporation, and they would get their $10,000 back and whatever valuation the LLC is at the time they're leaving. So they would get, I think it's up to either 1% or 3%, maybe. I can't remember right off the top of my head, but
Okay.
most of the investors have put their 10,000 in, and pretty much all of us have said, you know, we don't look to get that back. This is for our town and our community.
Okay. Okay. Well, and Beverly kind of has a question along the lines of, are you going to turn the profit over to purchase, excuse me, additional lots to build more homes? What does the profit look like for the future?
We are going to purchase more lots to build on. That's for sure. The profit part, uncertain yet, I guess, on some of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Still,
Okay. Megan also asks, any chance that you're going to tackle the hotel project?
without any grant funds? I don't know. I mean, never say never, right? You know, we were going to put 3 apartments in there to accommodate some of our school teachers. At one point in time, of course, it's been a year or two since I found this information out, but at one point in time, we had like 9 faculty members that didn't even live in our school district because there's no housing and nothing to rent. So that's kind of the line of thinking with the 3 apartments in that size of a building.
Okay. Okay. So what other questions are there for our speakers today? Feel free to open up your microphones or use the chat box. Lots of good information. Anything else you care to share, Brian, as we're waiting for some questions?
You know, I guess if you're thinking about doing this, you know, and you know, talk to somebody you know on the city board or the city council. If you have a building inspector, try to build some rapport with them. Try to talk to some local contractors in your local lumber supplier, and you know, get a good working relationship or some rapport built with them, so that when you do get ready to start, it makes it a lot easier.
Okay. Got a couple questions rolling in for you. Joanne asks, if all the investors worked equally on the project, you and Dave mentioned the hours and countless hours and working your backsides off. How did that work? Did everybody put in equal sweat equity?
No, they did not. And we knew that going into it.
Okay. Okay. Dawson asks if there's recurring contributions or is it just the initial 10,000?
So when we started it, it was just the initial 10,000. Since then, since we've sold the house, we've had some interest, and possibly the buyers of the house are really interested in becoming investors. And I guess we still need to hold a meeting and maybe think about, since we started, it was 10,000, but maybe there's less stakes involved now. So we might raise that buy-in price to maybe 12 or 15.
Okay.
Because there is less risk. So we haven't decided on that as a group yet.
Okay. Kelsey asks how you got the word about the investment group out to the public.
We just started calling people, see people on the street, talk to them.
Yep, that's all we did.
Okay. Okay. And people just rose to the occasion then, correct?
They did.
Okay. Beverly wants to know if any of the investors are city board or county board members.
No, they're not.
No.
No.
Okay. So can you kind of tell us without using names maybe? Some of the investors, you've mentioned the banker. We know the two of you. Any other?
We have a farmer. Actually, we have two farmers. We have a retired
School teachers.
school teacher.
I guess we had three farmers, or two farmers and a rancher.
Two farmers, a rancher, a retired school teacher, and another business owner here in town.
Okay. Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I want to know how it feels now,
What's that?
just to have accomplished this. How's that feel?
Really good. It feels like a weight's been lifted off of our shoulders. It feels good because, you know, all the hard work that we did put into didn't, you know, go in vain. It was to set out and accomplish exactly what we said we would. So it's a great feeling.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Yeah, definitely. Sean wanted to know, and I think you touched on it, but I can't find it in the notes. How many initial investors at the $10,000 level?
There's 8 of us.
Okay. Okay. So, and then Flatwater Bank helped provide your construction loan or a portion of it, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. So what do you as our participants today want to know more about? Any other questions that you might have for Brian and Dave? I think this is fascinating. A small community of 420 some people just built and sold a $200,000 home. And if you're familiar with Ansley, it's going up the hill to the east towards Highway 183, and it fits very nicely in that neighborhood. I was there about a month ago and walked around it and peeked through the windows. So I think it's amazing. So yeah. So what do you as our participants want to know about today? We've got some more time for a few more questions before we begin to wrap up.
So it's not an additional question, but just Chelsea reminded me that we have something to celebrate, and that is the land bank legislation was passed last week and the governor signed it. So that's exciting. For those of you that don't know about that, one of our early sessions, one of our early webinars in 2018, I'd have to go back and look, but I think probably in the first quarter was about land banks and how they can be used. And so I hope that we have communities that are thinking about how they can come together to really to revitalize dilapidated properties, to hang on to those so that they don't get in the wrong hands and just continue to depreciate our communities, but instead become assets. So that's exciting, and I hope we'll be able to talk about that soon and how communities can come on board with that. We are talking all the time. I just heard from one of our communities that they are at 125,000 and headed hoping to raise 200,000 for an investment club. So I hope they were able to get onto this today, and if not, we do record these, but it is so awesome to be able to just have you guys tell your story. We feel like that is so inspirational for our communities to be able to say, hey, wait, if they can do that, we can do that. And so have you reached out at all to alumni?
So
Investment?
Some.
Yeah. I think
Maybe Lori would want to.
call me.
Jerry Catlett on the call too. Jerry, you want to
Yeah.
weigh in on that?
Well, I just want to say congratulations on what you guys have done. Should be proud of what you did and are doing. It's great for Ansley.
Thank you.
You know, call Jerry and myself and we'll talk, okay?
Okay.
Meaning my husband, Jerry. I can't speak for Jerry Catlett, but you know,
I thought you did mean that. That's funny. Jeff is asking, they're telling us that talks are starting in the Panhandle on land banks. I know they're starting in West Central Nebraska too. So all of this means good progress. It's like, you know, we can feel a little bit of Brian's excitement, saying, you know, it's just such a relief and a good feeling. And it's so awesome to see some of these things coming to fruition in communities across the state, seeing that duplication. Did you, if I missed it, I apologize. Did you start all your own forms, or did you use the template that's been out there that I know Mesner's have some forms that they make available and such when you were starting the investment club?
We hired a local lawyer out of Broken Bow, and he drew up all the legal documents for the LLC.
So he started fresh on that rather than duplicating. Okay.
good.
For those of you that are listening that are thinking about this, we like to do what we call R&D, rob and duplicate. And so Cliff Mesner with Mesner Development has made some forms, some templates available that help you do that without recreating the wheel. If you have an attorney that's willing to do that, that's awesome. By all means, you should capitalize on that. But if you don't, there are some shortcuts that you can take.
I'm curious if anybody has an aha moment that maybe you could take to community leaders from today's presentation that you would be willing to share with us. We like to bring this information so that you can easily duplicate it in your communities. So feel free to share that with us. As you're thinking about that, Brian and Dave, how could people get a hold of you if they want to know more about starting an investment group and what you've done and the work you've accomplished in just what, 8 months, 9 months?
Yep.
How can they reach you?
My phone number is 308-935-1815.
Okay,
It's
got it.
212-0461.
0461 with an area code of 308, correct?
Yes.
Okay, we've got it in the chat box for both of you. Sharon noted that her aha was that they didn't wait till they had the full funding. They took 80,000 and borrowed the rest. So that was a step of faith on their part. So Brian's takeaway is that there are different ways to structure investment clubs, and the model we heard about today compared to the small dollar subscription model of raising funds. So yeah, for a town of 400 people to start an investment club, I think that's an incredible success story. So I'm very thankful to have had you guys here today. So I'm just trying to think how to wrap this up. So I just wanted to touch base here quickly. We talked about this last month's webinar, but we have rural workforce housing funds available here at SCID. And if you're in a community in our region that you might want to try to tackle something like what Brian and Dave and the Ansley Investment Group has done, contact Sharon or myself or Sherry, and we can tell you more about those funds. We had a ribbon cutting here last month with the home that we built here in Holdridge. And as you can see the before and the after there, it made a world of difference in the neighborhood. So take advantage of that if you are in our region and talk to us about that. So also, before we introduce you to next month's topic, today's webinar, as well as past webinars, are on our website, which is noted there at the lower left-hand screen. So feel free to check those out. Today's webinar will be posted in the next few days for revisiting if there is something that you want to catch up on or rehear. So once again, Brian and Dave, I would just want to say thank you to you for taking time out. I know you're both, you know, self-employed, and this is time away from your business and your day. So I greatly appreciate what you've shared with us, and I know it will be something that people will think about in the coming days, and hopefully people will reach out to you and get more information. So next month's webinar is September 17th. Mike Feakin will be joining us. He is the Strategic Partnership Advisor for First Five Nebraska. But prior to joining First Five, he was with St. Paul Economic Development Corporation for over 14 years as the economic development person there in Howard County. And he's going to be talking about your community vehicles 4 cylinders, which are housing, jobs, people, and childcare. And he's going to challenge us and talk with us about is that vehicle of your community running on all 4 cylinders. So look forward to having Mike with us and another quality webinar next month. So any last thoughts from anybody or questions? Brian, any final words of wisdom for us today?
I don't think I have any other things I want to add.
Okay. Well, thank you once again. And with that, I just want to say good day and thank you to all of you who have joined us. And we look forward to seeing you back here on September 17th.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
You're very welcome, guys, anytime.
Thank you.